Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's Monday, August 27th, 2018, coming up on 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And I'm back. I actually decided this weekend, since there really wasn't a whole lot happening with respect to developments across the U.S. and in the Atlantic on the tropics. Lane was winding down, although it was still being a rain producer for parts of the Hawaiian Islands. It was an ample opportunity for me to take a much-needed break because I needed a little downtime, so I took advantage. And also, just wanted to share with you, I'm working on a few things with regards to my website and trying to develop a new app. Which will basically mimic the website. It will be a free app, and all of this, of course, takes time. But as soon as everything is ready, I will definitely let everyone know. But the plan is, and I haven't really even spoken about it on Facebook yet. I like to share things first with my YouTube audience. You guys take weather seemingly a bit more seriously than on the Facebook side. That's a generalization, but what I'm going to be doing is basically taking my main website and creating an app for it that you'll be able to get on from Google Play or from the iTunes Store. And this way, you can just go straight to the app when it comes to getting latest posts. And also, I'll be putting up the videos and hopefully be able to get a live stream feed on there. And if I can do that, we won't have this issue with regards to notifications. A number of you have told me that you have my YouTube channel set for notifications and you don't always get them. That is a huge problem on Facebook, apparently. And there are also, in my opinion, there are some rather let's just say that let's call them nefarious things that seem to be going on with respect to Facebook and how it deals with things. I'll get a little bit more specific about that when the time comes. But I think I would like to have everybody at least in a place where they are getting notified when videos are coming on, and they are getting notified when website posts are being produced. Especially during stormy situations. So just again, sharing that with you with regards to where my mind is at and what I've been working on. So if things get a little bit hairy and sometimes I don't come on time, on top of that, I got to manage all my other stuff. So I appreciate everybody's patience. I want to start today by talking about the tropics, because I did touch upon this on a website post I did yesterday on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and what I've pulled up here is you can see the surface map. This was actually back last Friday. This is the surface map across the North Atlantic and down into the tropical Atlantic. You see where the surface features are, the highs and the lows, but what you're also seeing in the colored areas, that is relative humidity, and we're looking at the higher levels in the atmosphere with respect to how saturated is the air. And this has been a big issue across the tropics and the subtropics through the month of August, because except for a few odd situations here and there, we've been dealing with a lot of dry air. And if you look on the map, the brown color there, that is very dry air. Relative humidities bone dry, covering much of the North Atlantic, and I'm sorry, let me rephrase that, covering much of the subtropical Atlantic and the tropical Atlantic. I keep calling this the North Atlantic because on tropicaltidbits.com it is called the North Atlantic view. But here we have a lot of dry air. It's no wonder that tropical waves have looked so anemic after they've come off the African coast and have done very little in terms of development. Now, as we move into this week, you start to see that green, that I guess that's a greenish area, let's call it that, off the African coast and then extending out into the tropical Atlantic. the drier air to the north is diminishing considerably, and it now seems as if that we are seeing the production of tropical waves coming out. Now, the GFS didn't especially do very much with these in terms of developing them. If you notice, as each one moves into the central Atlantic, at least on the GFS today, the model shows them to weaken a bit. And it's not really going nuts with any of these things. But we are seeing some of the other models getting a little bit more bullish with regards to tropical cyclone development in the Atlantic. Here is the Canadian model, which now we know that the Canadian model, I've always joked about the fact that if you stand still long enough, the Canadian model will spin up your shoes. And actually, as soon as the end of this week, it has some kind of wrapped up system east. Well, I shouldn't say wrapped up, but it looks like it has some kind of tropical storm east of the Cape Verde Islands that it migrates westward. Then yet another wave follows after that. The European model, same idea, by the way. The European also seems to be growing bullish, with at least showing some kind of closed surface lows. Now, I would caution you, in as much as the models are unreliable, many times showing overly deep hurricanes. They are also equally unreliable in the other direction, where they don't exactly pick up what's going on. They show you the feature in the form of a surface low, but they don't really handle the intensity very well. In this instance, when we get through the latter part of the weekend and the next week, we actually have 4 systems here. One east of the west of the Cabo Verde Islands, another one northeast of the Leewards, another one east of Bermuda, and yet a 4th one that looks like it's in the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. So, the fact that the European at least is getting, beginning to show a busier look here to the tropics over the next 10 days would be, I think, a pretty good, more reliable indicator, as opposed to the fact that if you've only had one of the models doing it. But you have all 3 of them actually, all 3 of the global models, the GFS, the Canadian, and the European, they all seem to be on this idea that we're going to start to see an increase in activity. And with respect to the upper air, we do have, backing up, going back to last Friday, you have this ridge across the Atlantic. And this is kind of a flat ridge, goes east to west, coming into today, starting to see it build along the southeast coast of the United States. By the middle of the week, there's actually a bit of a trough that drops down in the middle part of the Atlantic along about 45 degrees west, kind of splits the ridge in two and creates a weakness, only to have that upper high build back as we go through next weekend and into next week. So, with a ridge like this, you would at least expect these systems to carry along to the west or west-northwest at least for a while, assuming they hold together. And, going out to days 9 and 10, a lot's going to depend on where everything is at that point. But you still have generally a strong, though flattish looking east-west ridge running from the Atlantic from about 30 degrees north. There's a bit of a weakness there, back to the southeast coast and actually inland further west. So we'll see. It certainly looks like we're going to start to see some activity. I would have found it very difficult to imagine that we weren't going to see any tropical activity going forward through the month of September, that we're going to stay as quiet as we are. It was just a matter of time before the pattern changed in the tropical Atlantic. The saturation of the atmosphere, the reduction of the amount of dry air, the reduction of the Saharan dust, and then the other issue, of course, is going to be the wind shear issue and whether that diminishes, because that has also been an ongoing problem with strong upper air winds across the Caribbean and into the tropical Atlantic. So over the next coming days, we're going to have a few things to look at. And with respect to the tropical, the satellite in the tropics right now, you are seeing some activity. If you look on the lower right, you can see the development, a wave is beginning to move off. So at least we're seeing some thunderstorms beginning to develop back in the far eastern tropical Atlantic. Not too much going on elsewhere at the moment, but that is where the models are waking things up off the African coast and in the major development region. So that's where we're going to be paying attention. In the meantime, by the way, I didn't even know this until I checked a little while ago, but Lane was back to upgraded to tropical storm strength today, as we saw thunderstorms blow up near the center. But since then, we have, I think, seen some weakening, and as the first visible pictures show, you clearly can see where the low-level circulation is, and you can also clearly see those cloud tops in those thunderstorms being blown away to the northwest. Hawaii, Kauai on the upper right corner there at 22 and about 160, getting into some of that blow-off thunderstorm activity and downpours that are blowing away to the northeast. But the worst of this, I believe, is over with for the Hawaiian Islands. I just wanted to show you what happens when you have a sheared system, and think back to watching this all happen Friday and how quickly this hurricane got torn apart. It was done in it took about 36 hours for it to go from a strong Category 3, almost Category 4 hurricane down to a weakening tropical storm. But when you get that strong shear, those strong upper level winds ripping the cloud tops off, the exposed low-level circulation is what is left, and that goes on its merry way as it responds to the low-level steering down in the trade winds at the bottom of the atmosphere. So that thing just kind of moves right along. So basically, all you have left is a swirl of low clouds. So I just thought it was kind of interesting to see that. Meanwhile, speaking of interesting, take a look at the radar here across Montana. This is, by the way, over south central Montana into northern Wyoming is not rain. That is actually some snow that's showing up in elevated areas 5,000 and 6,000 feet up, where we actually have winter weather advisories in effect. And that began yesterday and continues today. So here we are in the month of August, the end of August, seeing the first snows and the highest peaks there in the northern Rockies. Really interesting to see. In fact, one of the GFS runs yesterday had on day 16, which of course we don't care when it's out that far and it shows it, but it actually had a very deep upper low coming down into southwestern Canada and bringing cold, I mean, for this time of year, cold and snow throughout much of Montana. That would be 2 weeks from now, but it kind of backed way off from that, but it was kind of bizarre to see. I'll even bring it up. I'll show it to you in a second. Meanwhile, in weather more fitting for August, we have some downpours and thunderstorms this evening occurring across parts of Minnesota, and it looks like some heavy thunderstorms there and into northwestern Wisconsin. Also in the heat that is going on, in the oppressive heat that we have here in the east, seeing some downpours, but only in upstate New York, some very widely scattered thunderstorms in parts of Virginia and West Virginia and down into North Carolina. But really, the thunderstorm activity this afternoon is minimal. We are seeing a bit more of it across the Gulf states and along the Gulf, more along the Gulf Coast, and a bit on the busy side with downpours and thunderstorms occurring in southwestern Florida from Tampa down to just north of the Keys. It's not solid coverage, but there are two very impressive looking clusters at the moment coming up on 6:15 Eastern time. So please remember, if you're seeing these radars or if we're talking about severe weather warnings, you're going to want to, if you're watching this on a replay, be sure to check your local radars from your local National Weather Service office, and for any watches and warnings at weather.gov. A little bit of action down in Texas, a little bit of action in interior Southern California, some monsoonal stuff, and that's just about it. So let's come back now. We've got the new GFS out, I think, at least reasonably far enough so we can take a look at what it's doing. And by the way, this is this weekend the GFS, along with the other models, showing something trying to close off circulation near or just west of the Cabo Verde Islands. So models seem to be rather consistent with that idea from run to run lately. Okay, back to the weather here in the east, and we are in the midst of an upper high, a ridge in the eastern United States, and so we're baking away, and the humidity is atrocious and ridiculous, and that is going to stay the case until Thursday. We do have, for tomorrow, looks like there could be some hefty thunderstorms across parts of the upper Midwest and into the Great Lakes. That is the next cold front that's coming through. Now, it looks like that the front, is going to be a bit slower. Initially, it appeared that we'd get this frontal passage here sometime Wednesday night, but now it looks like it's probably going to hold off until late Thursday or Thursday night. So that'll bring a fourth day of 90-degree temperatures to much of the Northeast. Not all of it, but much of it. Looks like southeastern southern New England southward, because the front is already pushed into upstate New York and Pennsylvania by Thursday, but it reaches the coast Thursday evening. So there might be some showers and storms with that. And then high pressure moves up into eastern Canada, much like what we just saw. It's back to this onshore flow for Friday and into the Labor Day weekend, which at least will cool things down a bit. I'm thinking Friday and Saturday probably not getting out of the 70s both those days, but then you have the next frontal system approaching from the Great Lakes for Sunday and Monday, so that will probably bring in warmer and more humid air, maybe not like this, but what we're experiencing here this week, and the chances for some showers and thunderstorms. And by the way, with respect to the dew points, they're off the wall again, and they're insane. But we've got dew points into the 70s for the next. Look at the extent of the dew points in the middle and even the upper 70s on Tuesday, going all the way back to the Great Lakes. I mean, this is just really super oppressive air. And then Wednesday, you start to see some of that drier air coming down from the north, but still 70s dew points on up through the Ohio Valley, upper 60s to around 70 for us, which is bad enough. And then on Thursday, one last day, here comes that front on Thursday. Now, the dew points on the GFS get pretty high here, like 76, 77 dew point. So I'm wondering, whether if that thunderstorm times it with the daytime heating, if we get enough of it, we might see some strong cells here going into late Thursday and Thursday night. And then a break. The dew points come down on Friday and Saturday. They don't come crashing down, but they come down enough so that there'll be a bit of relief, and then only to come back up as we move into Sunday and into Labor Day. Want to take a look at the upper air from the standpoint of the North American view. And, the jet stream's starting to get a little busy up in Canada anyway, but before we go on, that's the new run, but I don't have enough of it. But we do have the jet stream strengthening across Canada, which is what you would start to see, what you would expect to see in late August, early September. But you also still have a very strong ridge across areas south of 35 degrees north. So, it takes a while for the upper highs that want to stay in the summertime mode to weaken. Eventually they will, but we'll see them flex back and forth going through this week. The main jet stream, the main westerlies look to stay basically north of 35 degrees north, and that actually continues into the first weeks of September. In fact, we do have a ridge building into the east during that first week of September when the kiddies go back to school, so it would certainly imply some rather warm weather. We also have troughing in the western and the northern plains, and I want to go back to yesterday afternoon just to show you I don't know what the model was seeing with this, but this upper low that you see back up in northwestern Canada comes driving southward to Lake Winnipeg, and it's from this that we had the surface map that looked like, there we go. Look at that. That for this time of year, that is a rather cold shot of air that the model was telegraphing here at day 16. We, of course, when we saw this, just laughed hysterically. I sent it to a couple of friends of mine to look at, to just just kind of say, well, let's let the hype begin at this point. But we are, at the very least, it's a signal, though, however, that the models are beginning. The models are certainly sensing what's happening, in that we are coming down. We are coming now to the end of the summer season, and we are going to start to see the jet stream begin to change and evolve as we get into a more, eventually into autumn, and that will create some atmospheric turbulence. By the way, this is the new GFS at 156 hours, and if you look, there's actually some snow popping up in parts of southwest Canada. So you snow lovers that are watching, your time is going to be coming now. We are going to be, we're heading toward your season, okay, and we're coming away from, we're well away from the peaks of the summer season. I'm going back. I just wanted to see the latest on the GFS. We go look at the tropics. So here's that wave. Looks like it comes off late Thursday or Friday, and it still has it in some fashion here at a week from now. So that would be a bit of a bullish sign, and it also looks like another wave is about to come off. So again, with respect to the consistencies that the models are showing, with the Atlantic getting a bit more active, I think that you see all three weather models doing it would give you, I think you can have a little bit of confidence that we are going to see, some tropical activity going forward. I don't really want to see it, and none of us want to see tropical storms or hurricanes develop. It's inevitable that we are going to see something with regards to tropical storm activity, but we'll see now if the ocean water temperatures being a little cooler than normal, what kind of impact they will play. Cooler than normal, remember, does not necessarily mean that they can't sustain tropical storms or hurricanes. They are certainly warm enough to sustain it. It's just that they're not at the crazy levels where they're running far above normal, where you'd have widespread Category 5 support like we did last year. So it'll be, again, very interesting to see how that winds up playing out. So got a nice crowd out on board. I guess the 2 days off, a lot of people are coming back today, and also a Monday. Only got, next weekend is the Labor Day weekend, folks, and then it's, we're done with the summer vacation season. Anthony Orr, our resident statistician, says we've had 0 hurricanes since July 12th. This is the 4th time since the year 2000 that the Atlantic has had 0 hurricanes from July 13th to August 27th. And the other times were 2001, 22, 2002, 2002, 2002. All right, let me start that again. 2001, 2002, and 2013. So I would say 4 times in the last 18 years. It means to me that is not uncommon. So the fact that we've had a relatively quiet August is not uncommon, and doesn't necessarily mean that we will have a quiet September, and it may not necessarily mean that we have an active September either. We'll let nature play itself out. And Greenfire 919, yes, the air quality in the Northeast is awful. It is awful. It's just absolutely oppressive here. The temperatures, by the way, made generally upper 80s to around or just over 90 in most places, but the humidity was so insane that it still felt like it was in the upper 90s. And I'm not liking that. Billy Johnson, you get my notifications from YouTube, but not on Facebook. Okay, not surprised with not getting them on Facebook, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not one to necessarily believe in conspiracies, but I am really beginning to question when Facebook says that it doesn't manage some people's traffic more favorably than others. I'm having a growing difficult time accepting that. Okay, so that may be a hint as to where at the beginning of the show tonight. There's stuff going on with respect to Facebook, and it's not. I'm very disturbed by it. I've spoken to friends of mine, by the way, that are very disturbed about it. I don't mean to be mysterious. It's just that it's created since the beginning of August. I found myself in a situation where it's created some issues for me. And maybe it's bot driven. I don't know, because they don't communicate with you, even though you ask for information. They don't respond. So I'm waiting to see. I finally was able to get a hold of someone, a human that actually writes in sentences other than what would be in a form message. So I'm waiting to see some results, and I will elaborate more in time. Anyway, snow in Yellowstone. I was just looking at their forecast for one particular spot, going for lows down in the 20s tonight, believe it or not. And Israel, you had an amazing weekend. That's excellent. You were in the Italian Alps. Really? An image of someone, I saw an image sent out, showed around a foot or more of snow from this morning. I heard John Elite mention 4 to 8 in parts of the West. Yeah, up in the winter weather advisories are up for some of the mountains up in Montana, in south central Montana, and into parts of northern Wyoming. Yes, indeed. The trough is in the west, and the ridge is in the east. So the colder air is in the west, and again, we're talking about 5,000-6,000 feet or higher where they're seeing this. Charlie Baker. Misery index out on the porch today. It looked like it was a 3 cornstarch cup day. Yeah, that cornstarch comes in handy. You taking me back to when I was a kid, because my mother was a big believer in that. The band in Nitrovert, the band in Minnesota is almost here, and you're in Winona. Yeah, those thunderstorms look pretty strong up there with respect to what we looked at on the radar. Israel, no long-range questions. I have said this many times. I'm going to take the wet noodle to you. I don't know. I don't have my head. I do not get into the long range that much. I can't get my head around it. But at some point, I'm going to try and get someone on a Skype one day that handles it better, and maybe they can get into it far better than I ever could. J. Luke, Hypernova. Is there any chance of a derecho occurring in southeastern PA? Some people were talking about the pattern being favorable for one to develop. I assume you're talking about maybe on Thursday with the front. I don't like to speculate 3 days out too far when it comes to severe weather, because I think that sometimes, for certain areas anyway, at least where I am, there's always some kind of variable that can get in the way. I will give it a closer look. I haven't honestly given it that intense attention that it would require. But let me give it a look, and we'll talk about it some more, either on the Facebook show a little later on with Joe Rayo on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, or tomorrow. Now below freezing, way up there in northeast Canada. That's where it starts first, William Huber. You are dying, weather and low, with the humidity. You're ready for lower humidity, but not coming anytime soon by you, and certainly not over the next 4 days. Iron Mind, the models have something out there, so we'll be watching. And if you're on late, go back earlier, because I did a lot about the tropics at the very beginning. Snowfin, nice to see you this weekend. Yes, I was at WPIX TV Channel 11. Had worked 2 days. That was the other reason why I took time off this weekend, because this is 8 days in a row for me, and my brain is kind of getting a little bit like Jello. So I needed to take the break. Isaiah Jacob for Charleston, South Carolina. What about for Charleston, South Carolina, Isaiah? Let me see. Did you put up a prior question here? Any relief for Charleston anytime soon? I don't think you're going to get much with this weather front. I think it stalls out north of you, so you're going to have to wait. We're going to have to probably wait until we see some kind of deeper trough come into the east to push down dry air further south. We had that big surprise last week to see it push down as far south as it did, but we don't have anything coming anytime soon, at least as we go through the week ahead. Okay, folks, coming up on 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're going to call it. We'll stop it here at this stage of the game. Just want to mention one, as always, when it comes to tropical storms and hurricanes. Remember, when we get to that point, if we get to that point, you are to be sure to consult your local National Weather Service office or the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, if we're talking about Hawaii, regarding decisions that you may have to make in regards to the threat from hurricanes or tropical storms. Weather model maps that we show you are not to be used for making decisions. You need to go to your local government officials. And of course, we are going to remind you that if you're looking at the radars here, they're dated. We're coming up on 6:30 Eastern Time, so if you're watching this on a replay, please be sure to check your local radars and for any other watches and warnings at your local National Weather Service office, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. We're a participant in the Amazon Services and the Ebates LLC Associates program. They're affiliate advertising programs designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and to Ebates and their affiliated sites. So you shop on those. You shop that way via those links. They throw me back some coin. Doesn't cost you an extra dime, and we both walk away happy. And thank you for those of you who have done that. I will. Israel, there's been a Facebook issue regarding trying to download. Usually what I do is I download, after we do the Joe and Joe show, I download it and then upload it to YouTube. Suddenly last week there seemed to be some technical issue that developed with Facebook that I wasn't able to download the videos. I haven't checked since, so you will. I'll try again tonight. If I can't do the download, I can't really. Then I can't send it up to YouTube. Nigravert advises he's up in Minnesota near Winona, now under a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado warning there to the north. Again, at 6:32, if you're watching this later, check your local radars on weather.gov. And William, yes, we'll be on with the Joe and Joe show tonight, roughly at about 9:15 Eastern Time, plus or minus. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you either later or tomorrow.